Hello, it's me, Kyle. Welcome back to Give Paws Hobby. Today I have something special. It's the first time we're going back for a pickup of some sort. Not necessarily part of a mistake in this case, just in addition to what's out there before. And also it's doubly special because the previous video I sent out was nearly an hour long, and this should not be anywhere close to that. Today we're talking about the Vagabot once again, but specifically the different character cards that you can choose when you are choosing who your Vagabot is going to be. Now, what I'm going to do today is give you 3 different lists, and we'll introduce them as we get to them so I don't spoil anything. But there are 3 things coming up. So the first list is going through each of the Vagabot character options and comparing it with its meatbag Vagabond version to see how closely the rules hew to each other. Also, we're going to be talking about the 3 classes that came, or characters, I guess, that came with Clockwork 2. We have the Arbiter, the Scoundrel, and the Vagrant. So now there are 6 different versions of the Vagabot that you can be facing off against. And I'm not going to lie, rules-wise, the 3 of these are significantly more hefty than the first 3. So we're going to go in, the first list is going to be in order of how easy the rules are to implement. Now, a quick aside, first of all, if you haven't seen the video about the Vagabot itself, the link is in one of these corners, that's going to go over all the rest of the stuff that's here for the Vagabot. The Vagabot is, it's the only bot that has nearly 2 pages of rules, but also it's the only one that had to go to a smaller font on the faction board because there is so much stuff here to talk about. In the video, I point out that it's not nearly as challenging when you're actually running it once you've learned it, because depending on what you what the ordered suit is, you're only going to look at those actions for that day. You're not going to go through everything every time. So it is deceptively challenging looking, or rather it's challenging to learn. Once you learn it, it's not as bad, which really goes for all the bots, but especially for ones like the Vagabot. So anyways, these character cards are only going to give you 1 rule each, and it only happens when you see special as one of the actions you are going to take during your turn, which are only during fox and rabbit turns. You draw the order card. If it's fox, oh my goodness, it wouldn't be recording in the morning without yawns. That's 1. The fox turn is explore battle special. Rabbit turn, battle repair special. And when you get to special, the rules are you're going to exhaust 1 item to take that effect on your character card. Skip this action if it would have no effect. And there's one of the new ones that breaks this mold, so stay tuned. So anyways, let's get into it. Thief. Thief was billed as the easy version, the easy character that you could play as the Vagabot. Now this is in addition to the difficulty and the traits. The 3 different classes, Thief, Tinker, and Ranger from the first Clockwork expansion were billed as easy, moderate, and hard challenge. So what Thief is going to do is take a random card from the enemy in your clearing with the most points there, then the most pieces there. Let's jump back to the Meatbag Thief. Steal. Take a random card from a player in your clearing. So they're pretty much the exact same. Now, obviously, the Vagabot Thief gives you some rules about who exactly to choose because otherwise the bot wouldn't know. But besides that, you're taking a random card. Now, taking that card, remember, for a robot is not going to actually give them a card. They're going to kind of yank it and then bobble it and drop it, and it becomes a victory point. They can't actually hold the card, but they take it from you, so look out. And if they have to take from a bot, then the bot typically, if it's giving a card, it would just draw one from the deck, but since it's turning into victory points, it just becomes a cardless victory point transaction. So there you go. Next up, Tinker. The moderate challenge from Clockwork 1, Day Labor. Search the discard pile for the top card with an available item and craft it, scoring 1 victory point. So comparing it to the meat bag version, Day Labor, take a card from the discard pile, matching your clearing. Oh my goodness. So take a card matching your clearing. So this is a interesting, as a little tangent, interesting thing because I've pointed out in the berries of the faction boards, if there's ever a difference between the human version of something and the bot version of something, Leader Games has made the name of the berries different, even if it's kind of getting at the same idea. Price of failure and cost of errors are the same idea. Moles are getting penalized for losing buildings, and how they get penalized is by unswaying ministers. But since it's different enough, or different at all, they have different names. Interestingly, in Clockwork 1, the names are the same. Both the Tinkers are day laboring. Both the Rangers have a hideout. Now, in Clockwork 2, they do away with the names on the bots, but maybe because of that, I don't know. Just a little aside. So, in terms of how close these are, it's mostly the same. The only difference for the human and the bot one is that the bot is only ever going to be looking for items to craft. Now, in most cases, that's what the Tinker is going to be looking for too. But especially if you're using the Exiles and Partisans deck, where you have a lot more options that could be beneficial, whether to do something for you or to undo something for someone else, there are going to be times when you would take something that matches your clearing that is not necessarily an item to craft. Probably not early on, and in some games, maybe never, but you at least have that option, and the bot does not. It's just going to look for a card that was discarded or used for some sort of effect that didn't tap out the last option in the supply, and then make it for 1 victory point. Next up, Ranger. This is the hard mode. We're going to look at the bot here. Hideout. If you have 3 or more damaged items, slip into a random adjacent forest. Now, if we look at the human version, hideout, repair 3 items, then immediately end daylight. So, these are kind of mostly the same, but this one is better. The bot one is better. So this is only going, remember, the special only happens when you have special in your daylight actions like order. And it only ever happens at the end. So the reason this is really good is because when you get to evening, once you've refreshed items, you have the second step is to repair damaged items. If you're in the forest, you get to repair all of them. If you're not, you get to repair 1. So the human version, you have to spend an action to repair 3 items, and then you immediately end daylight. I mean, most people would probably save this to the end anyways, unless they're fans of, shooting themselves in the foot. For the bot version, 3 or more damaged items, they could have a bunch, and then they all get repaired. And they're in a forest. So that's the other part of why this is amazing, because not only are they going to repair 3 to however many they have, they are then untargetable for the rest of their turn. Maybe they lost a bunch of items because they're in the lead and people are trying to bop the Vagabot, and then they get to repair all of them and then hide. So a full turn rotation goes around where they are not a viable target. So the bot version, definitely better. So we are now going into the Clockwork 2 territory. Now, I think it makes sense for me to talk about the old and now the new, but honestly, it also makes sense in this continuum of complexity, from Thief to Tinker to Ranger. We are now going on to the Scoundrel, the bot version of Mr. Pumpkinhead. So, the bot version of the Scoundrel. Actually, let's flip this around and let's go human inspiration first. So the human scoundrel. Obviously, all the specials are going to require you, well, their abilities, to tap your, exhaust your torch. So place this torch in your clearing. Remove all enemy pieces there. Pieces can no longer be placed in or moved into this clearing. So they nuke a clearing. They get all the points for any cardboard that's destroyed. The clearing is just... pieces can no longer be placed in or moved into this clearing. So you are there, you can move out. It doesn't have a rule against moving out. But once you leave, nothing can come back. And nothing can be placed there. So it's just, the game is just absent one clearing. Goes from 12 down to 11. But you also lose your torch, which... you know, typically when you do this action, it's at a point where you can stand. It's going to be a big enough effect that it's worth that loss. Now, the bot version of the Scoundrel, if your clearing has 3 or more enemy pieces and a building or token, remove all enemy pieces there, place any item from your board on a building slot there, and score 1 point. Buildings cannot be placed in a covered slot. I have this marked in the same vein, but less awful for everyone else. So this does not remove the clearing entirely. What it does is it clogs up one building slot. When the human scoundrel dropped its torch, the clearing is dead forever. When the bot scoundrel does this effect, only the building slot is dead forever. The clearing continues. However, they still get to nuke the clearing and destroy all the pieces, and collect points for all the cardboard, and get 1 additional point. Just for doing the action, they get 1 point. And they're guaranteed at least 1 other one, because it has to have at least a building or token in the clearing. It can't just be a big 2 balls of enemies that were about to have a big war the next turn. It needs to have at least 1 piece of cardboard. So they're going to net 2 victory points at least. They're going to lose an item, but they're going to clog up a building space, which may be the only one in that clearing, for the factions that actually need building spaces for things. Now, it does not specify, it says place any item from your board. So I would take this the same way that damage is allocated for the Vagabond, which is to say you first move exhausted items. If you take damage, you're going to put exhausted items into the damaged box first. If you don't have any more, then you go to unexhausted. I would do the same thing for this. It's not specifically in there, but it says any. So I would go for the most... the most best version for the bot, and the one that makes the most sense, because you're then the action would take up 2 items. If you had to tap one to take it, and then you had to put an unexhausted item for the action, that would, well, A, I think that would just be too costly, and B, that would make it so there are times when the special doesn't happen. Because if you ever don't have the full amount of items you need, like paying 2 for completing a quest or additional battles after the first, if you don't have 2 items, then you just leave that last, you leave them untapped, and then you just go on, or if it's at the end of your turn, you just are done. So I would say exhausted item goes onto the slot. And I think it's really cool. I think it's a super impactful, and it can happen a bunch of times. It totally changes the fact that there is 1 pumpkin bomb that this guy can set off. There is a backpack of propane or whatever that this bot has. They can do this over and over and over again, and it's going to make the map very different and be really dangerous at all. Once a scoundrel does this one thing, it's probably going to be impactful, but that's it. They don't get to do it anymore. Not so for the bot. All right, Vagrant. Everyone's favorite possum buddy. Instigate. Initiate a battle in your clearing. You choose and remove pieces for both attacker and defender. And you say, wait, Kyle, you didn't tell us if it was going to be the human or the bot version. That was the human version. Let's read the bot version now. Initiate a battle in your clearing. You choose both attacker and defender, and you remove pieces for each. The only difference is the bot version does specify you get to choose who's in the battle, first of all, and then it says remove pieces for each instead of remove pieces for both attacker and defender, probably because they couldn't fit it on the line. Now, this one is a little bit challenging. It is a silver medal in terms of complexity, so do the math if you haven't figured out who's going to come last. But it does leave a little bit to be desired in terms of the rules clarity. So I did my due diligence and I looked it up because when it says you choose, first of all, anytime the bots say you, they're referring to the bot. In the same way that player boards, if something says you, they're referring to the faction that the board is on or the card is on, and then vis-a-vis the player. So you never means the person who's piloting. It's always in reference to, it's a second, what is that? Second person pronoun for the bot that's taking place. So no, the person who's piloting this will not be choosing for the bot. That you is not you they're thinking of. So I found, took a little bit of time, did not find it on BGG, though supposedly it was on BGG. On Reddit, the question was asked, how do we decide who these factions are that fight, and then remove pieces for each? So to me, I was just going to apply the logic of the battle, how the Vagabot chooses its battle, but also kind of the reverse order from the law of rootbotics of how bots take hits. So in battle, it's moved to the nearest clearing with any pieces of the enemy with the most victory points. That's how they choose their targets. And in the law of rootbotics, in taking hits, the bot removes all its tokens from the clearing before it removes any of its buildings there. So to me, that usually, the way I've interpreted that is because typically buildings have, for most factions, buildings have further reaching effects, longer lasting effect, whatever you want to say. They're more important than tokens. And they also take up a building slot, which, is a zero-sum game for any other faction that wants to build buildings. So I would say, since the bot wants to hold off on removing buildings, I would say if the bot gets to choose, which usually is not the case, in this case it is, they would go for buildings first. So when I finally found this on Reddit, Benjamin Schmaus, the creator of BetterBot Project, that inspired and is the bones on which Clockwork is built, goes by Incommon, responded, "It's missing. I provided the following information on BGG. Vagrant special. The Vagrant does not provide tiebreakers for the instigate ability. It was meant to follow battle rules. But given that it's missing anyhow, I can provide better tiebreakers." So again, it seems like, not to have a cool geeky flex here, that it was meant to follow the battle concept. But in the rule book, the rules for the Vagrant bot, it's just repeating what's here on the card. There's no clarification in that. So Benjamin says, well, since it's not the battling thing, here's what he would say. Select the player with the most pieces as attacker, and the player with the second most pieces as defender. The Vagabot only selects itself if there are no other options. And then, when removing pieces, prioritize buildings over tokens. Choose randomly between multiple types of buildings or tokens. So it's, as the name implies, well, it's not named here, but instigate from the human version implies it is taking the two most powerful or the factions with the most clout in the clearing and just smashing them together, saying, hey, they were calling you names and they are calling you names, and then a fight ensues. And then when the dust settles, the Vagabot has chosen the most impactful losses for each of the factions to then ideally go off somewhere else or do, you know, easy pickings in that faction once it's been, or that clearing once it's been just eradicated. So yeah, that is the Vagrant, which leaves only one more, the Arbiter, the Badger, which I guess looks like that now. So the human Arbiter is one of three, I believe. Yes. Three Vagabonds that have a special that does not require them to exhaust their torch. It's just a consistent effect, a persistent effect, there it is, that's always switched on. For the other two, they only happen on their turn, but the Arbiter is different, which is why this is going to be the one different bot that, you know, just because of the way this action works. So the human version, Protect. Before rolling in battle, the defender may enlist the Arbiter if he is in the battle's clearing. The Arbiter scores 1 point and adds undamaged swords to the defender's maximum rolled hits. Now remember, this came up in the Otter video, the previous one. Adding to maximum rolled hits is not the same as adding bonus hits. Bonus hits are just adding a number, however many bonus hits there are, to whatever number you roll. Well, hold on, let me back up. Maximum rolled hits is the, you can roll up to 3, but if you only have 2 warriors in a clearing, that's your maximum rolled hits. So you can roll a 3, but you're only going to do 2 hits because there are only 2 warriors that can deliver those hits. There are abilities in the game that increase your maximum rolled hits. So if you have 2 warriors, but you have one of those abilities and you roll a 3, those 2 warriors get to deliver 3 hits. That's what the Arbiter is doing. They're not guaranteeing extra hits on top of what you are doing. They're just increasing what you can do, which can increase things. It can make things a lot more even, which is why the defender gets to choose whether to enlist the Arbiter or not. If oftentimes the attacker chooses battles wisely, that they are probably not going to sustain big losses. So enlisting the Arbiter helps say, well, I'd like them to sustain more losses, and let's do it. So the bot Arbiter, before rolling in battle, the defender may enlist you if you are in the battle's clearing. If so, you score a point and add the number of items on your battle track to the maximum rolled hits. So this is almost the exact same as the human version. It refers to numbers of items on your battle track, which again, reminder, you should have seen this already in the video, but that's how the Vagabot gains battle or hits in battle, is by having their 6th, 9th, and 12th item go up there on the battle track. And then they just get to do more hits. All right, so just a quick reminder, it only gives you additional maximum hits for the number of items on the battle track, not the number of maximum hits the bot actually has. Because if it has 0 items on the battle track, if it has 1 to 5 items, its maximum hits are 1, but there are 0 items on that track, which would enlist you 0 help for your battle. Then beyond that, which is different from the Arbiter, is bots will enlist you if their maximum rolled hits is less than 3, their maximum hits is less than the attacker's pieces there, and you have fewer points than the defender. Now, a couple things. One, all of those need to be true. That's not a list of potential ways that the bot can greenlight it. They all need to be true. So they need to have less than 3 maximum hits, their maximum hits less than the attacker, and they need to have more points than the Arbiter. So even if those first 2 are true, but the Arbiter is beating them in the victory points, they won't do it. The second point is that that second paragraph, haul this card out if you have a human Arbiter in play, but you have bots as well. The law of robotics says this is how bots will interact with the Arbiter, whether piloted by a human, like actually a human Arbiter, or another bot. So that's really cool because it's an interaction outside of just the bot kind of keeping to itself. So those are the 6 bots that are available to play right now, which leads you to wonder, wait, there are more Vagabonds that I have access to, which is true. So my second list is bots that I'm most excited about, or I guess I should say ones I think will be the easiest to implement. I can only imagine that there were 3 in the first one, there were 3 in the second Clockworks. I can only imagine that these last 3 Vagabonds of the Vagabonds now, who knows, they might make more in the future. But the other ones we don't have available are the Ronin, the Adventurer, and the Harrier. Which I'm just going to spoil it. That's my order of what I'm excited for, or what I can see most easily transitioning to bots. Starting with the Ronin. Remember, Swift Strike, again, doesn't require an action. After rolling in battle, you may exhaust a sword to deal an extra hit. So I can see this just being something that there's always doing extra hit in battle or whatever it may be. And I think this would be super easy to implement. To have like a super dangerous kill bot out on the board, I think would be great. Adventurer, improvise. Once per turn, you may damage any item to treat it as another item for a quest. Now, obviously, on a 1-to-1 ratio, this wouldn't make sense because the bot already doesn't care about what items it's exhausting. However, in the 2 types of turns, the fox and rabbit turn that have special, they do not have quest. In mouse and bird turns, they do. So what I think this could do is just say, your special is you complete a quest. And you might even get something like either an extra victory point for it, or it only costs you 1 item to complete instead of 2. Even if it was just you get to quest on special turns as a, which would mean all types of turns you get to quest on, I think it would be an interesting change for the Vagabot. And last but least, I guess, I love the Harrier. Glide. Tap your torch to move to any clearing, exhausting no boots. I think it's awesome. I just don't know. To me, that would be the one that would be the most interesting and challenging, to not impossible by any stretch, to put into a bot form, but I think would be cool. I'd love to see 3 more, so I'd make another video like this to introduce those. All right, and my last list is my beauty pageant of both the human and the ROOTbot version of the Vagabond. So starting with 6th place, those that are available, bot and human, has got to be the Arbiter. I like the Arbiter, and I really like the Meeple, but I just think it's not the most interesting, and I love all the Kyle Farron artwork. I think the Arbiter bot might be my least favorite of them, but that's because the other ones are so good. 5th place is going to be the Ranger. I really love how there are callbacks to the original artwork, like the kind of slash over the eye, which is slashed over, and the cracked like viewing lens on the ROOTbot. I think it's great, but there are just better ones. 4th place, the Tinker, which I was originally going to put below the Ranger until I realized what that thing on the back is, which is like a robotic like beaver tail, and that the helmet is shaped so it's like big long beaver teeth in front, which I guess I kind of always knew. And the fact that it has a chainsaw, I just realized that, which essentially beavers are like living chainsaws. So that's pretty delightful. Bronze medal, it's got to be the Thief. I think a lot of nostalgia. The Thief is the figurehead for the Vagabot. Sorry. Figurehead for the human, as well as the figurehead for the Vagabot version. So it's just, I think, really good. However, the Vagrant, I'm not as big a fan of the human Vagrant. I think it's fun, but the bot Vagrant being just this like thing on like skateboard wheels, it looks like, and there's some arrows that the Vagrant has, and an arrow right in the face that the bot has is awesome. But last and most is the Scoundrel. I mean, they're both so happy, just like this game makes me. And with that, before the battery on my camera dies, I'm going to end this video by saying, I've been Kyle. Thanks for taking a pause with Give Pause Hobby, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me on this crazy quest with all the ROOTbots. I can't wait to make some more different content, come back to do some of this, just do everything Root, and then some things that aren't even Root. I know, there are other games out there, and I promise I also play them and sometimes make content about them. But Hope you're having some great games in your woodland, and I will see you next time.